good evening. There comes a time in every young man's life where you have to question your life choices and what you're doing and where you're going to go. And we do that every Tuesday here on the ASTV EPL panel show. But we decide to come and stick around with you guys anyway, regardless of how poor those choices may end up being, because it's always a roller coaster here on the American Scouser TV EPL panel show, the most exciting EPL panel show in the internet sphere. We're joined by Glenn and Sully this week. Sully representing Lithuania by the looks of things as well. That's a nice international jersey top thing.
Lithuania and the Grateful Dead, my two loves in life.
There you go. Yeah, who could ever forget that automatic connection between the Grateful Dead and Lithuania?
So, Macca, if you don't mind a quick story, basically what happened.
Go ahead.
The Soviet Union's basketball team for years was strictly basically Lithuanian players. The best players in the world, or in Eastern Europe, were all Lithuanian. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, Lithuania found itself independent and wanted to put a basketball team in the Olympics. But coming out of a revolution, they don't have any money. So one of their players was playing at Golden State at the time, knew Don Nelson, the coach. And Don Nelson was very, very close with the Grateful Dead. And so the Grateful Dead in 1992 sponsored the Lithuanian national basketball team to go to the Olympics, and they got bronze in the Olympics. This is sort of a what's it called? This is like a concept jersey. But if you Google the 1992 Lithuania basketball team receiving their medals, the Grateful Dead provided them with full tie-dye warm-ups with a Grateful Dead skeleton dunking a basketball. And so there's always been this connection between Deadheads and Lithuanian basketball. So that's my rant for the day.
See, that's the great thing about being on this show now. You learn so many cool new things. I'm sure they played them a 5-hour concert after that as well, just to
no lyrics at all. No singing. At all.
It's not even a song. It's just one guitar note bent upwards for 5 hours. Sully, we know, is in good form. Ben, how are you? You should be in good form today of all days.
I am. Yeah. Watch Brentford get a very entertaining win against a very beleaguered-looking Aston Villa, who must be having the most surprising of awful starts to the season. They just cannot buy a goal, a win, whatever else. So yeah, I'm buzzing from that. And obviously we'll talk about the Chelsea game, which was another thriller. We've been involved in two very, very entertaining games, which as a fan is great. I mean, we've 3 points is the most important thing, but honestly, a really entertaining draw is a lot of fun as well, as Juve showed us today.
And Hassan, he remembers that Lithuanian team there, Sully. So, we're doing well there. And BX Gunner 81 has a more topical comment about the whole thing. But let's have a look at what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, Gunner, holler at me.
We're going to talk about the game week 4 games, match week 4 of your from the other side of the pond. Cups galore this week, the Carabao Moose Cup and the Champions League league stage starts this week as well. Some tasty games as well, and one that involves our friend Sully there on Thursday. We'll get another chance yet again this week to laugh at Manchester United, but we will talk about whether the wheels have truly come off, because I didn't realize this before, but Ruben Amorim's win percentage is like the lowest since Alex Ferguson, since before Alex Ferguson, in fact, when you think about it. The time has to be coming up here for that, and even after the Schadenfreude is done, you kind of have to feel for Manchester United fans a little bit for how badly this whole thing is being handled. And we'll look ahead to the games for this weekend and the Tonali's pick as well. So let us have a quick look there. And if you have contacts on, you may have to squint. At the scores, let me just put that up big for now. The scores there: Arsenal 3, Nottingham Forest 0. Bournemouth 2, Brighton 1, Crystal Palace and Sunderland a bore draw. Same with Everton and Villa. Fulham beating Leeds United. Leeds in a bit of trouble there, I think, already into the season. Same with Wolves losing to Newcastle and Newcastle's new striker Isak replacement. Spurs, Thomas Frank continuing to do what we all thought he would do, and then that great exciting game between Brentford and Chelsea. Burnley and a very, very late Liverpool there, 1-0 for Liverpool with the stupidest defending against the ball into the box, I think, from the Burnley
Awful.
player. And then, of course, the Manchester derby, there wasn't even, it was a procession really from the first minute for that game there. But let's start with you, Sully, because you got to see the guy who we won't name the guy who isn't at your club anymore, much the same way as Liverpool fans won't name the guy who probably will be injured when Real Madrid play Liverpool. But the new guy, 6'7", 6'5" or something like that. Yeah, made his mark. You can't do more than that really on your home debut, can you? Is to make your mark there and then.
Well, just incredible that's, I think, something like only his
You mean the wrestler?
I think it's incredible that it's only his third header goal. Like, he has come out and said he's not really a target man. He prefers to move around the pitch. He prefers to drop back. He wants the ball at his feet. He's not somebody you punt it up to and let him one touch it in. He's not a poacher. He is a wildly skilled player. I was talking about it a couple weeks ago. Watching his Stuttgart highlights, it is kind of comical because you expect him to look like Peter Crouch. You expect him to look like Dan Byrne. Like, big guys have a certain way they move, and he doesn't have this. He is not as acrobatic as Zlatan was, but has similar skill sets in the way he moves the ball with his feet. I am not going to go as far as call him the next Zlatan, but there are similarities in the way they play. But I also think he's kind of a secret weapon, because Holland is also pretty strong, and I think this guy could put on a couple pounds of muscle. But Holland's only 6'3". This guy's an easy 3 to 4 inches taller than him, and I think has better possession at his feet than Holland even does. It's an ideal start. I cannot wait to see what happens as he gets incorporated more into the team, because it seems like Vissa is going to be gone for a while. It seems like he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. I'd love for even if he has to sit out until the African Cup of Nations and then get through that, and we don't pick him up till the winter, I still think we're sitting in an okay place. I personally am a big fan of Will Azula. I think he is going to be a solid number 2 striker. But we're going to get a lot of players back next week. We're going to get Joe Linton back. We get what's his face? We get Anthony Gordon back. We get the other Jacob M, who I can't remember his name, for Jacob Ramsey. We get Jacob Ramsey back next week. So I think we're in a good spot. I think we are going to be full tilt going into Barcelona. Well, I should say Barcelona coming to us. I think we are going to be in a good spot. And I think we'll be fine this weekend. I'm off the ledge when it comes to, personal safety watch with Newcastle United. I've taken a step back. I like what we've done with the lineup. And Voltemade has given me a lot of hope. I mean, even if he's not the best striker in the Premier League, God, that guy's going to be fun to watch. Like, he is going to be entertaining till the season's over. So I'm in a good spot. I'm feeling very comfortable. Yes, we probably should have won by more. Wolves came out and pressed us pretty hard in those first, 2 to 5 minutes. But after that, we were in control of that game and probably should have put another one in the net. I mean, what can you say about Jacob Murphy also? Like, Jacob Murphy, everybody thought he was just kind of an Isak merchant. He got all of his assists just kicking the ball up to his buddy. That ball was right on Nick Voldemate's head. That was like, he didn't move for it. He leaned back a little and redirected. So I think Murphy, I think the what's it called? The stories of Murphy's demise have been greatly exaggerated. I think Murphy has found a good partner up top, and I'm very happy with how we played on Saturday, despite it not being as lopsided of a win as it probably could have been.
No, because you mentioned Crouch there, and Crouch kind of had the same thing in that he wanted to be seen to be a player who could play ball and not just be a target man. Andy Carroll from both of our parishes had the same kind of a thing. You thought you were getting, well, at least when we bought him, we thought we were getting somebody who could get on the end of a good number of crosses, especially at the time with the accuracy that Steven Gerrard had. But he spent a lot of his time in central midfield hunting for the ball where we didn't need him. And, especially when Luis Suarez wasn't around at the time for, I don't know, biting somebody or whatever the hell he was out banned for that time. But, he was never where you wanted him to be. Do you think that Eddie Howe, when this player came into the Newcastle club, do you think Eddie Howe looked at him and knew exactly what he was getting, and he's not going to try and turn him into a target man? He's just going to take him as is and use him the way the player himself wants to be used. Where misses.
I think Eddie Howe probably looked at him and said, "What the fuck's in the water in Stuttgart? Like, how do you got somebody this size?" I think Eddie is going to figure out I think Eddie is going to look at how the player wants to play. And if you look at our midfield, I mean, our midfield is basically a wall. Our midfield is super defensive, doing the dirty work. Voltemade, a ball squirts out of there and gets to his foot from a short distance, and he starts to gain speed as he gets towards the net. Who's going to dispossess him? Like, who? I mean, like, really, who? I mean, Mings at Villa, maybe, but he's just such a powerful player, and he's just so freaking huge. I mean, he'll keep you on one shoulder, and the ball is 2 meters away with how long his legs are. Like it's incredible. I think we're going to see Eddie Magic. The only player who's really come into the team and Eddie Magic hasn't worked for was Chris Wood. And I would almost say that has worked, because look at Chris Wood since he left Newcastle. Like he's been outstanding. So I'm not worried about him dropping back. The midfield is what it is. I mean, Bruno, Tonali, and Joel Linton, they'll direct him. They will let him know where you should be. I mean, the three, like, you got to feel great as a striker having those three guys behind you, knowing that, I'm not going to have to track back. I would, and I'm not worried about stamina with this guy. He tracks, like, it's 4 steps for him to track back. Like, it's all he needs. So I'm not worried about him wanting to be a certain player. I think Eddie knows that, and I think that's why Eddie signed him, for a true number 9, not a target man. I mean, Newcastle, usually we have true number 9s rather than a target player, but I was beyond impressed. I think it's going to be very, very good for the next few weeks. I just need him to get used to the Premier League physicality, get used to the stamina required, get some games under his belt so he feels comfortable. But that's not going to take very long if you're putting in headers your debut at St. James.
Now let's move on to Glenn. 2-2 Chelsea. We talked about Keith Andrews. We didn't know much about him, and he didn't start off the season looking like he was going to take up the baton from Thomas Frank. But that league result and then the cup results today against Villa in the Carabao Cup, he seems like he's kind of finding his feet now a little bit, doesn't he? It may not be exactly the same as it was under Thomas Frank, but Keith Andrews may end up being one of the new to the Premier League managers who has the least amount to worry about if he can continue this mini resurgence, at least now. What did you think of that particular game against Chelsea, and a Chelsea that has been praised by pundits, etc., as a team that could push towards a top 2 spot at least?
Yeah, absolutely, Macca. I mean, yeah, it was a great game. It was really exciting, first of all. As I said earlier, it's just fun to watch Premier League football that's attacking and incisive and entertaining, because there's been a couple of dry games this season already, right? There's been a lot of very defensive games. So it was good to see 2 teams who were really positive. What was interesting to me was like both the starting teams line up. So we didn't start Dango Atara. He'd come back late-ish from international duty, so he was on the bench. And then we were missing Damsgaard through illness, who is crucial to everything we do, right? He is our creator. He's our playmaker. So we played pretty much a flat 5 at the back, 3 centre-backs, Ethan Pinnock coming back into the team, and he had a good game, thankfully. 3 in midfield, with not the most creativity, you would argue, but what was really interesting is that somebody like Jordan Henderson comes into the team, right, Macca, plays a full 90 minutes, was relentlessly good, and his assist, as I imagine you've both seen, for the goal, for the first goal, for Sharda, I mean, wow, that was probably the pass of the weekend. I haven't seen every goal this weekend, but from every game I saw, that was unbelievable. The weight, the vision, and he was passing the ball. He was spraying the ball around like that, and he was tackling everyone, you know what I mean? Yarmouk, who's young in midfield, he was brilliant, and Jensen put in a good shift too. So, yeah, it was interesting. We went to a 5-3-2, so you saw him adapting from a 4-3-3. And yeah, we just looked really solid. What was curious for me was the starting lineup for Chelsea was really bizarre. It was a back 4 that I think had never played together before. I don't think they had at all. Fofana coming back from injury on the right as right back, a new signing at left back. Buonanotte, who was one of the strangest signings of the transfer window, slotting in, starting in midfield, didn't really do much. So it felt like a very experimental lineup from Maresca, which you could argue was either A, arrogant, or B, this team's played a lot of football. They've got a lot of football coming up. He knows he needs to rotate and keep the team fresh. But I'll tell you what, it didn't work. They weren't awful, but we were the better team for large periods of the game. And the only real time that we were completely on the back foot and Chelsea were dominating was the period when Cole Palmer came on the pitch and he got a goal with a great finish. He should have had another goal. I was shocked he didn't score that. It was a good save by Kelleher. When a player of Palmer's quality comes onto the field, even if he's like brutally out of form, what differentiates us, right, Macca, from Chelsea is this is the players that Chelsea brought off the bench. Cucurella, Cole Palmer, Reece James, Tyreek George, and their lovely new signing Garnacho. I can't tell you how many million worth of talent that is. We're in the 300s, probably. They're comfortably 300 million, right? That's just the way the league is, and that's fine. We actually brought on some quality too. We brought on 2 of our most expensive signings ever, so we battled. But just to show you the depth, the laughable depth of Chelsea's squad, these are all players that were either bench tactically or rested. That's the quality that's coming off the bench. I mean, most of those players would get into most teams, right? Certainly Cucurella and Palmer. So anyway, it was disappointing when obviously we went 2-1 down. Great finish by Caicedo. I mean, there were some good quality goals in this game. Like, they were good goals. Palmer's, Caicedo, Sharda's, these are all top quality goals. But what was awesome was obviously the Liverpool connection. Carvalho gets a chance coming off the bench, and he makes it happen, right? And I'll tell you what, Macca, our long throw is going to traumatize defenses across this division. Not only did we get a goal from a long throw against Chelsea at the weekend, and that was after pinning them in. Long throw. I think we have 4 players that can launch the ball. I think we have 4, with Coyote being the furthest I've ever seen in a Brentford shirt. We scored another from a long throw today in the Cup, which was hilarious. Aaron Hickey's goal came from long throw, knocked out, incredible volley first time, beautiful goal. So we're going to, the same way Arsenal had their whole corner thing last season when they scored from so many corners until they just stopped scoring from corners. We're going to be the same with the long throws. We're going to really upset a lot of teams because we're going to pack the box and we're going to really upset the goalkeepers. But yeah, I mean, to equalize 90 plus 3 minutes, that shows fight, that shows determination, that shows good substitutions from Keith Andrews, right, Macca? That shows good game management. And when all's said and done, yeah, I'd love to get the win. It's a derby. We've taken the lead. We're at home. But when you look at the substitutions Chelsea made, it is almost farcical to bring on that much talent in a competitive Premier League game. They weren't playing us in the Cup, right? They didn't rest everyone. They wanted to win from the get-go. And they're bringing that boatload of quality on the pitch. It's like, hey, what can you do? But I'll tell you what, our squad, despite losing so many key players, I feel like across the entire squad, we have more depth on the bench than we've ever had at any point in the Premier League. That is what I'll say. I'll say we have more quality spread out across positions than we've ever had. Right, Rico Henry, Aaron Hickey. I mean, these are players who, if they were fully fit for a long time, they'd start for many Premier League clubs, right? So yeah, that was great. And then, yeah, we might get onto it a little bit later, but got a cracking win in the Cup today. And that is momentum for you, Mac. A last-minute equaliser, Cup win on penalties. That's what we're talking about. That's how you kick on. That's how you make, you kind of gather momentum in a season. It's these results.
Now, the thing about it is, and when I did coach, I was no enemy of the long throw. If you could find a player who could do a long throw, it's as valid as any other tactic. The thing that might make it work is that it's a flatter delivery than a corner. Corners are usually looping and a little bit easier to predict. But it doesn't surprise me because Keith Andrews played under, I believe he played under Mick McCarthy, who was a long throw taker back in his playing days, and played, I believe, if I remember correctly, with Rory Delap, who was the king of the long throw.
The king.
But this is the thing. Arsenal do the thing with the corner kicks last season, and Arteta gets praised for it. A club like Brentford maybe makes a weapon out of the long throw, and then they start being called anti-football. And it's a little bit crazy how that narrative forms, isn't it? Because as long as it's legal and valid, if that's how you get your goals, it's up to the other teams to really stop that, isn't it? It's not up to you to do it as a club because it's not aesthetically pleasant.
Yeah, it's more anti-football, I'd argue, to bring $300 million worth of talent off the bench with 20 minutes to go. That's kind of anti-democratic, entertaining, equitable football. And hey, I'm not saying it should be that way. There's going to be a hierarchy of teams. I don't begrudge anyone that. But nonetheless, you shouldn't begrudge Brentford or any other teams who have innovative ways of doing this. And I felt the same about Arsenal. I thought it was really interesting that a top 2, 3, 4 club that is known for playing aesthetic, good football, at least historically, actually became exceptionally dangerous from this set piece, which is seen as quite a rudimentary way of scoring goals, right? But if it's effective and you score goals from it, if you're a Brentford fan, you're not going to care if it's from, an underhit back pass, from a long throw, from a 40-yard screamer. If it's going in, and if you're making a weapon from something that other teams would just see as a route to maybe a corner or a route to getting the ball in play on the ground, I mean, it just doubles or triples your threat area, right, Macca? If you can turn throws into corners, and sometimes, as you said, even more dangerous than corners because they are flat. And we've got I think Sharda threw it in for the equalizer. We have Sharda, Jensen, Coyote, Pinnock. These are 4 players who can launch the ball. So it's handy. And for Sharda, for your forward to be able to do this, I mean, it's great. It's absolutely great. So yeah, I mean, I haven't heard many people say that too much. I think people get fed up if we keep scoring from it. But when all's said and done, if our budget's going to be a fraction of yours, then we have to make the most.
Yeah.
We have to be more than a sum of our parts. And that means that means piling in the box, and that means creating chances from set pieces that other people would just see as a throwaway. Yeah, straight back to the defender. It's great. And it makes the game more interesting as a fan, Macca. There is very few things as exciting as watching somebody walk back 5 steps, run up, and just launch the ball into play. It's a really thrilling thing from a home fan.
And Glenn, to add on to your point, it's ridiculous people saying it anti-football. Smaller mid-level teams got to figure out something that's going to give them an edge. And if this is what Brentford has up their sleeve, more power to you guys. There's something just so endearing, and the Premier League, Carabao Cup, all these, or not the Carabao Cup, sorry, the FA Cup, all these things kind of have it. A smaller team, and Glenn, I meant no offense by that. That was coming in friendship. But have a gimmick. If you have a gimmick that another team can't handle, keep using it. Make them stop you. That's not anti-football. That's good tactics. That's good strategy. That's knowing your squad. That's getting the most out of your squad, like you said, being more than a sum of the parts.
I mean, the thing about it is as well, we saw that going right back to Wimbledon in the 80s. They have the crazy gang gimmick, but they were built around the whole statistical thing of most goals being scored in 5 passes or less, which is still the case in 2025. But playing not Route 1 football, as Dave Bassett always said, they played Route 2. They played into the corners first, and then they crossed it in. But the only problem for Wimbledon is when fans demanded better, more aesthetically pleasing football, and they start buying players to do that. Glenn, do you think there's a war? And I want to kind of tie it into Jordan Henderson's past there. That's what you get when you get a Champions League captaining player. You get that kind of quality. But is there a risk that Keith Andrews makes a go of this, and with Thomas Frank, you weren't playing Barcelona tiki-taki football with Thomas Frank, which is why I liked him. It was skillful, but it was very direct. It was, we're not going to pussyfoot around 27 passes on our own halfway line. We're going to get the ball into dangerous areas. Do you think there's a risk that the more success Brentford have and the more longevity the team has in the Premier League, the more fans will start to ask for more better, attractive football in the manner that Stoke fans did, and look where they are now?
And West Ham fans, there's no better.
And West Ham fans, well, they've always had that reputation. Like, they were always a footballing club.
That's true.
Stoke kind of had like different philosophies, but Tony Pulis did a great job keeping them up. And as soon as they wanted non-Tony Pulis football, they've been going backwards ever since. Do you have that concern as a Brentford fan?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I don't think so. I think most Brentford fans, certainly like Brentford fans who are not even to gatekeep, that have been fans for like 10 years, you know what I mean? Even like 6 years, if just pre-Premier League era fans. I mean, you're never going to take being in the Premier League for granted, right? And honestly, any way you're scoring a goal is exciting. It's thrilling in the Premier League. I mean, sure, if you're in like, I don't know, you're in League One and you're in mid-table, you're playing awful agricultural football. Like, I've seen that for a couple of years. That is not very much fun, right? But you've got to do what you've got to do. And I would say that the fans, right, are understanding that the players that you're kind of alluding to without naming them, honestly, Mac, those quality technical players, whether it's your Ericsson, Mbumo, your Vissers, like, these are players that fans are aware. We have sold them, right? They have moved on.
But just on that point, though, because the same thing happened with Bolton under Sam Allardyce, is crucial thing is they bought into the way of playing. They did, Ericsson wasn't adverse to smashing the ball down the field when he needed to smash a ball down the field. He did his job. The problem is when like ownership and fans start to demand a different kind of profile of player, and then that changes how things, because you can't afford the best players to play the best football. That's where the issue is, really, isn't it? It's not the skill level, it's the demand of the wages, etc.
No, but I will say, I mean, the club, on that point, the club has sold our flair players, right? This exciting player, Bumo, one of the most exciting players in the league on his day. The club still ponied up what everyone agreed was an exceptional amount of money to buy Dango Ouattara from Bournemouth, right? Consensus was we had overpaid. Consensus was it was a shock. He's not getting into the Bournemouth first team. I'll tell you what, Maka, with your point in mind, right? I think the fans accept that this isn't going to be as fun a season as last year, right? But I think the club was really smart because they dropped off record amount of money on a bit of a sweetener. I think I want to call Dango Ouattara a little sweetener for the fans because he's direct, he's a flair player, he's exciting, he has stepovers, he gets you on your feet. And sure, we're not expecting as much of him as we are a kind of 3-4 Premier League season in Bumo. That's not a fair comparison. But yes, to your point, if we just were long balls, route one, even if we were scoring, great. Yeah, fans get a bit fatigued with a certain ugly sense of football. But I do feel with Damsgaard, with Dango, with Sharda, with Henderson, there is still a really good balance of, players, creative players who can express themselves and play really aesthetic football, right? As you said, that Henderson assist for Sharda. I mean, Newcastle, Liverpool, you'd be thrilled with that goal. If somebody throws it over the top for Salah to run onto. Great. That looks great. So I think to answer your question directly, it's going to be about striking a balance this year, right? Yes, I welcome goals of any sort, and if they're ugly, that is no problem at all. But I do think we have enough players who, A, believe in the Andrews philosophy that direct is good, and B, can also entertain the fans by being creative. I mean, Dango was sensational in the Cup today. He was so exciting. He was so direct. So it's a balance, and I think the club, by signing Dango, have kept the equilibrium. Had we not signed him, and it was just Thiago, the big man up front, with Sharda relentlessly running off him week in, week out, yeah, I could see some fatigue there, 30 games into the season. But, and Henderson feels like an exceptional signing. And I'm so grateful he's at the club. He is just such quality. On and off the ball, he is quality. And that's priceless in the Premier League. That was a coup to get him. That really was.
And let's go to Sully and look at the other results there. The one I want to talk about is because we didn't have you last week, right? It was just me and Glenn, wasn't it?
Yep.
The Hardy boys and Uwer misses for that one too. But Big Ange going into Nottingham Forest, a manager who brings his personality with him, and no enmity intended here, but as opposed to Eddie Howe, who brings Tyndall with him as his personality. But nevertheless, a manager who has a certain style that he believes in, just like Eddie Howe. We didn't. I don't think we gave Forest a chance for this game, but is this a bad move for Forest? Is a bad move for Big Ange? Because we talked about last week how different the styles are, and I know he didn't have much time with them at all, but kind of the stark contrast was kind of writ large there, wasn't it, between the dour defensive but effective and economical Arsenal and the Nottingham Forest team that were formerly that way and are now going to be probably expected to play out and out attacking football. Is there going to be more 3-0s on the horizon for Big Ange and Nottingham Forest? Do you think?
100%. Big Ange is not a manager you bring in mid-season. That's somebody you bring in the off-season in order to get players, comfortable with his system. I think that is a bad move. I think that was a petty move. I mean, who was Forest's manager 2 managers ago? He's the most stereotypical British-looking person.
Cooper?
Steve Cooper, yeah.
Cooper. Yeah. Cooper, I liked Cooper. And then, right before...
I just wanted him to have a nap.
Yeah.
Just look tired all the time.
Yeah, I just don't think Ange is the guy for this. And Ange is also a hot-headed, emotional coach. That's not the person you bring in at Forest with that ownership. You bring in a tail between his legs yes man. Like that's the kind of guy you bring into a system like that. I mean, the roster, their squad is what it is. Their squad is loaded with talent. Very, very solid team. I think bringing Big Ange in is a big mistake, and I would not be shocked if we see a Forest free fall with this new appointment and this new philosophy.
Glenn, let's move on to the match featuring your old manager, and it's kind of nice that things are going well for Brentford because you can talk about Thomas Frank now, and without any sort of sense of overwhelming regret. But Spurs 3-0 West Ham. Question one: are you surprised at the impact Thomas Frank is having already on Spurs? They won tonight, I believe, in the Champions League, 1-0, I think it was. That's part one of the questions. Part two: are you surprised at how Potter is doing at West Ham?
Yeah, it's good questions. I mean, with Thomas Frank, I think I trusted him to really succeed there, but I think I'm probably surprised at the speed in which he seems to have really organized what was an extremely chaotic group of players under Ange, right? And there were reasons for that, as we've discussed at length, Macron here, injuries, whatever else, lack of signings, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if you told me Spurs after 4 games, tiny sample size, but if you told me they would be, third, they've won 3 of their 4 games. They've won at City. They've brushed West Ham aside. They brushed Burnley, I think it was, aside towards the start of the season, right? They've really battered them. I think I'd be slightly surprised, and the speed in which he's been able to implement his vision for the team, the speed under which they've become really solid at the back. I think the biggest difference between Ange and Frank is going to be the defensive robustness you're going to see from Spurs under Frank. He has better quality defenders at his disposal now than he did at Brentford, and that's going to be really exciting for him. It was great for me in my fantasy team, Acker. I had a couple of Tottenham defenders, which I started, including Van der Ven, who picked up a wonderful haul with a big goal for me. And it's a sorry story, isn't it? At West Ham, their recruitment was just so poor this summer. Was just so desperately poor. You look at that team. It doesn't strike me as a team that, with the best of managers or the best of relationships between the fans and the owners, would be in the top half. I mean, there's just, you take Paqueta aside and there's a real lack of quality in that team, I would argue. So I think he's working with a bit of a glass ceiling with the squad. Recruitment was poor, but it's hard to say that what he's doing has worked, right? That is for sure. It's not working. They've conceded a stack of goals. Their goal difference is already -7. and they've managed to concede 11 goals in 4 games. I mean, that is absolutely catastrophic. So we'll get on to Amorim. I do think it will be interesting to see who lasts longer. I think both Amorim and Potter will be gone before Christmas, maybe closer to Halloween, maybe closer than that. I think both of them are really on walking the plank, I think, for their clubs. And I've got a question. Frank is found about killing him to a cup. Well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah, he's fighting on a lot of fronts, isn't he? He's going to have multiple cups, multiple avenues to getting further. And you know what? I feel like if Spurs can finish top 4, have a really big push in the Champions League, I'm sure fans will be happy with that. I don't think Spurs fans will be demanding a cup under Frank's first season. I think if they see signs of progress, they could easily finish like 10 places higher, 15 places. I mean, genuinely, like what's
2 places higher.
Yeah, seriously, anywhere. There was like, if they finish in the top 4, how many places is that above? How big a jump is that? It's insane, right? So I think Spurs fans will be happy with league improvement and consistency. But if he can just get a couple of big wins in the Champions League as well, I mean, he started off well tonight. I think fans are going to be very, very happy with him. And he seems to get the best out of his players. I think he's already put his stamp on the side. Yeah, and just the speed in which he's been able to turn things around for them in the league specifically, because credit Ans for winning a cup. That is sensational. It's good. But yeah, it's the polar opposite of West Ham. And with Amorim, we'll get onto, but with him and Potter, I do struggle to see a light at the end of the tunnel. That's all I'd say. I do struggle to see these clubs, West Ham at the moment, as we're talking about them, turning things around. Villa and Wolves in the bottom 2, I can see both of them turning it around. Obviously, Villa are a great team. Wolves, I can see, can improve. But, you're looking at a team like West Ham, and if one of the promoted sides does stay up, which seems pretty likely, one of them staying up, you're looking at an existing Premier League team going down. And right now, obviously, the leading contender for that has got to be West Ham.
Sully, there was a point in time where I think both Eddie Howe and Graham Potter were kind of, they were both being singled out as the next great British manager. And for clubs like Newcastle that are kind of looking for somebody to spark some sort of revolution. But given how Potter did at Chelsea, how he's doing at West Ham now, and given how well Eddie Howe has done at Newcastle, it seems like in a sliding doors moment, you got the best of the sliding doors between the two, didn't you?
Well, yeah, kind of back to what Glenn said. It's almost like grading Potter on a curve right now. I mean, look at the 2 situations he's gone into post Brighton. Like that. He was sort of the start of the Chelsea shit show. Like that was a no-win situation for anybody. And walking into West Ham, it's sort of the complete opposite. You went from too many good players at Chelsea to one good player and then some dudes at West Ham. So I think Potter needs a little bit of time off, sort of the way Eddie Howe had time off after Bournemouth, went to Atletico, studied under Simeone. I think Potter just needs to step back for a sec. He'll get another job, and I think he's still a very, very solid manager. I don't think these 2 teams are total indictments of him. But I mean, it's one of those things where it's sort of like the grass isn't always greener. Stay where you're having success. That is one thing I love about Eddie, is Eddie really hasn't been linked too much with anybody else. There's every now and then there's the rumor of the England job, but I really think that's the only place he would leave for at this moment. And I think with Potter needs much more hands-on control. He needs ownership to trust him and be like, these are the players I need to do what I'm going to do. And I don't think West Ham or Chelsea, for that matter, have really done him any favors.
It's for somebody who had the reputation, like Eddie Howe, being a student of the game, it seems like when it all comes to a head at West Ham, he probably should, without no disrespect whatsoever, go back to school for a little bit, shouldn't he? And then maybe sit down with his wife or whatever, and figure out what nobody in the Premier League is earning piecemeal money. Do you know what I mean? Your mortgage is probably paid if you're not living beyond your means. So, he could be a Thomas Frank and become a project manager that goes to a club that needs somebody like him rather than his own ambition. Because he went to Chelsea for ambition, really, when you think about it, didn't he?
Right. Well, I mean, he's got the money now. Like, he's gotten paid. So I would completely say, yeah, put him with a project. That is a classic project manager. Same way Eddie is. Leave him. Just stay there. Build up what you've got, and you're going to be a legend. I mean, I don't want to speak for Brighton fans, but I think Brighton fans would take Potter back kind of in a heartbeat. I mean, I know they're still having success, but that's the type of club a guy like Potter should be managing. A Brighton side. West Ham could have been that if they had played it better, but that's his kind of role, and I think that's his niche in the Premier League.
I mean, yeah, that would seem, Brighton, for the managers they've had since, Brighton seems like a stepping stone for those continental managers to their next job, whereas it could be a destination job for Potter, really, couldn't it? Right. That would be the thing about it. So let's not jump into the cup competitions yet. Let's mash the two topics together. Manchester City and Manchester United 3-0. I mean, from my vantage point, Glenn, it looked like it couldn't have been any easier for City to play that game. But that's not the question at hand. The question at hand is this chap here. I mean, how many chances does he have? Any sort of compromise on Ineos or something like that? Because in years past, decades past, any Manchester United manager with his record would have been shown the door a long time ago. How many times can he get away with doing the same press conference of he needs time to bed in his system before somebody says, mate, you're having a bit of a laugh. There's the door. See you next time. Because it's at this point, when you look at somebody like Thomas Frank bringing his system almost instantly into Tottenham Hotspur, when you see Keith Andrews finding his feet within 5 games at Brentford, following a great Brentford manager, when you see Eddie Howe turning Newcastle around and making them into trophy winners, Ruben Amorim really doesn't have any excuses at this point. And it kind of makes sense what like people on the Thursday pod and the Monday pod, like Cozzy or Suzy would say, it feels like he's trying to get fired. It feels like the Ineos don't know that and they don't want to do that and fire him. But as a manager and as a coach, this has to be damaged to his reputation, mustn't it?
Definitely. It must just be embarrassing. I never know whether his deflections are, authentic or, whether he's just saying these things about time and formation because he feels like he has to. He's dug himself a hole. He doesn't know how to get out of it. Yeah, it's a really curious situation because I personally, Mac, I always had a problem with him being given a free hit for last season, right? He came in after, surprise, surprise, the manager ended the previous season badly, stuck around, Ten Hag, continues badly and gets fired. It's going to feel very familiar right now as we're talking about Amorim. Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, it's making Ten Hag look good. I always had a kind of philosophical problem with Man United hierarchy, some fans being like, you know what? Hey, we're probably going to be terrible for a couple months under him. We're probably going to be terrible. I felt like that set a precedent of mediocrity and a precedent that we can always have a caveat when we're terrible and we can say, we're betting in a system. It's not the right thing. We don't have the players. And I feel like bad habits get picked up when players know that they can get away with putting in poor performances, when players know there's always going to be the excuse that they were played out of position or the manager wasn't quite ready or the manager's too rigid with his formation. Like, I just felt like, Maka, when you line up a row of excuses and reasons to be mediocre when a new manager comes in, instead of demanding high expectations of him and demanding a united approach to winning, which in my lifetime, when all the kids in the south of England were wearing United shirts like it was a uniform in my playground, there's an expectation that United are a mega Goliath club, right? And they compete and they win. And Ferguson is this embodiment of a charismatic, demanding, winning manager, right? And I mean, just comparing personalities, tactics, whatever, Ferguson, Amorim, you don't need to go back all the way back to Ferguson to see that Amorim is doing a particularly shoddy job. He's won 25.8% of his Premier League games in charge. Can you imagine if Slot had a win percentage of 25.8% in his first season up to now? I don't think he'd still be in a job. It just feels as if they've rolled out this proverbial red carpet of excuses, ready-made excuses for this man. And for whatever reason, he has embraced them. And I think that's to his detriment, Maka. I think it's to his detriment that he has embraced the Ineos ethos of mediocrity. I think that's a real shame for him. Because I think, as you said, I think we're actually starting to see not just Ineos and the Man United brand take a hit. I think we're seeing the footballing world's faith in Amorim as a influential, intelligent, flexible manager. I think that reputation is just slowly but surely going up in smoke because he is delivering rubbish after rubbish after rubbish after rubbish. And I just feel like being poor is being institutionalized at Man United. And unfortunately, he's the figurehead of that. And I mean, it's their worst league start since 92, 93. He's breaking records that if you're a manager of Manchester United in 2025, you don't even want to know what these records are because they should be so irrelevant to you and your career in the club under your stewardship. Who cares when they were last terrible? Like, this is the Amorim project. And I just think there's been too many excuses ready-made. And I think that they've sowed being poor is acceptable, and we're just reaping that in season 2. And I don't think he's going to last very much longer because, as he keeps telling every interviewer after the game, if you want to change the system, change the man. That was his quote this weekend, right? He said, change the man instead of the system. Well, I think, Ruben Amorim, I think the man is going to be changed pretty soon because the fans do not want to watch this inflexible, rigid, really, really constrictive system that none of their players can flourish in. And final thing I'll say, Maka, I don't think they helped themselves with recruitment. They kind of went in on all these forwards, and the central midfield is in desperate need of legs. He doesn't trust Mainu for reasons I don't understand. The midfield is pitiful, and the goalkeeping situation, it's comical. For that question, Emery's never going to get sacked in a million years. Wouldn't worry about that. In a million years, he would never get sacked. It is comical, their goalkeeping situation. To go from Onana to the other bloke and then buy a goalkeeper, cheap out on all the other available options, Martinez, Donnarumma, cheap out on them, bringing this guy fans have never heard of, and then bench him in the Manchester derby. What kind of endorsement of faith in him is that? I mean, there's just a kind of sense of cowardice at the club, and I'm really sorry, but that, for me, is embodied in the manager. I think there's cowardice, and I think he needs to go. I think he should have gone weeks and weeks ago.
I just want to point out, if 92 and 93 was their last worst start to a season, they also won the league that year. It was the fourth Premier League win ever.
Well, there you go.
Now, here's what I want to say to you, Sully. So Glenn brings up the point for the players' point of view. There's clearly a lack of fear among the players. There's, they're playing the way they play, and there doesn't seem to be any comeback from the manager towards them. Now, Eddie Howe has the reputation of being Mr. Nice Guy. He's very pleasant and he's very, very well mannered. And Tyndall is the kind of jack in the box, up and down, jumping around, and being loud and noisy. But I get the impression that Eddie Howe's the one Newcastle players don't want to piss off in that particular partnership. He looks like the one that he doesn't even have to say anything. He gives you the look and you pull your socks up instantly. And which is a great thing to have as a coach. You kind of get, Jurgen Klopp seemed like a nice jolly fellow and all that and having fun with the press, but by all accounts was a hard-ass bastard in the training ground. Slot just seems the same as Eddie Howe. He looks like, you could tip him over in a stiff breeze, but you don't mess with him. Do you think Ruben Amorim has zero respect from their players? Like, is he the coach who, at training, the players are not making him while he's trying to do a team talk?
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised whatsoever. Brian Mbeumo is a perfect example of this. Brian Mbeumo looks like he's just having a run around to fulfill his contract. Like Šeško, non-existent. I mean, Newcastle dodged a bullet. You always there's the old saying, like, the two things you fear are a stormy sea at night and a quiet man's rage. I think that's 100% true. I think, when Eddie speaks to the media, he's very calculated. When Slot speaks to the media, very calculated. Amorim is not. I think
I mean,
he's
he's real hard on the sleeve, isn't he? Like,
well, I think he's figuring out his calculations on his tactic board
yeah.
while the press conference is going on. I mean, like, he's a clown. And the fact that, back to Glenn's point about the keepers, the fact that Onana won man of the match in his first game, is he at Fenerbahce?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
He won man of the match in his first game at Fenerbahce. That tells you all you need to know. That is, like, there is something rotten to the core with Man United, and I don't think firing Amorim is going to solve the issue. I don't think that's going to be the be all end all, the magic cure for this team. Like what we were talking about with project managers, I think there is also, and of course I'm not going to be able to think of one off the top of my head, but I think there is a certain type of manager who can make chicken salad out of chicken shit. Like, who can take what's given to him, look at the players and be like, all right, this is who I have to get the best out of. I'm checking my.
We have to go back a while just to get familiarity, but Brian Clough.
Yes. Like, this is who I have. This is how we are going to play because that's who I have. And I think a lot of managers sort of have fallen under the Pep spell of, I have to have my own system. I have to have my signature way that I play. No, just fucking play the game. Like, just go out there and play the game. Like, your best 11 against their best 11, and figure out what is going to make your best 11 tick. What is going to get the most out of them? Because for Amorim, it's not his system. It's just not. He is going to, without question, be the first manager fired this season. And I can't believe it hasn't happened yet. I can't believe it happened. It didn't happen after Grimsby. Like, I mean, that feels like so long ago, but there has been no change. The results have stayed trash. Like, they've been garbage, and they're not. It's not even like, oh, they're putting their best foot forward. They're really trying out there. They don't look like they're trying. They look like they're collecting a paycheck, and City showed that against Man U on Sunday. That was a walk in the park. That was nobody breaking a sweat on City. And yeah, Amorim, Man U, they're gonna have to burn this thing to the ground, burn the ashes, and then they might be able to restart.
I mean, because it seemed in the game against Arsenal, that they did actually play well, but that's now more of a false dawn than an indication for the future, isn't it? Glenn, Bazzani asks, how long do you guys think it'll take for United to win the Prem? Now, for us Liverpool fans, we waited 30 years to win a league title again after 1990, 91. But what can creep up on you is that kind of like constantly chasing the next figurehead manager that brings you back to the glory days. Do you think Manchester United are digging the hole so deep that, as Sully says, they're going to have to burn it to the ground, or figuratively burn it to the ground and start again? Because Ineos don't look like they know
figuratively, literally, whichever way you want to.
Yeah, whichever way, it works either way. But do you think Man United, as a big club, they will be a big commercial club, much like they were in the 70s? Which is, that was part of the rivalry with Liverpool, is Man United still had all the stars, whereas Liverpool were picking up through Jeff Twentyman, picking up Kevin Keegan from bloody Scunthorpe and winning the European Cup twice. Do you think it's kind of, it's going to be a tipping point for United where if they don't figure it out, they're going to be waiting another 15 years for their next league title?
Yeah, I think so, Mac. You look at the table, I think there's 6, 7, 8 teams that I feel like are more likely to win the league before Man United, at least in their current iteration. I mean, the table, it's early doors, but the table under Amorim, which is 16th and 14th, isn't lying, right? Across the best part of the season now, that's kind of where they're at under him, and it's nowhere near good enough. And yeah, it's tricky. I mean, there's the guy that's going viral online every weekend, which is the guy who said he'd refused to cut his hair until Man United won 5 games in a row, and his hair's already here. It's just like curly brown hair. And my favorite part is, if he had made his pledge, he wouldn't get a haircut until they won 2 consecutive games in the Premier League. His hair would still be up here, which I find absolutely hysterical. So it's going to be a long, long time for him until he gets a haircut. But yeah, I mean, seriously, something's rotten at the core of the club, isn't it? I mean, Ineos come across as charlatans to me. Just really
but not
nasty.
these charlatans, because they were quite
No, they're
great.
Good band. They're a
Not like
band.
the band. They were quite great. Yeah,
I've seen them. No, I mean, Ineos come across as just like the worst of the kind of nasty, cheapskate kind of millionaires, billionaires.
This is just an investment for them, really, is that's what it comes across.
Yeah.
There's no, at least FSG are sporting people. They want sport and success, whether it's the Red Sox or whatever the ice hockey team is, or Liverpool. But Ineos is just, this is page number 27 on the portfolio.
Yeah, it's just so cynical. It's so loveless. And there's just so much arrogance with them, like completely misplaced arrogance. They have nothing to be arrogant about. Manchester United finished 16th and now they're 14th. Like, what is there to celebrate at this club? And as I said, the recruitment was strange. I mean, Cunha and Mbeumo are 2 good signings for any club. I'm not saying they're bad signings, but just, as you said, Sesko is not really looking like the one up front from the small sample size. Yeah, it's going to be a real test, isn't it? How long, Maka, can a legacy and a brand carry a club? How much leverage does the Man United brand and the Man United Fergie legacy have? Going to be 10 years out of that, 15 years, 20 years. Like, I mean, sure, they could win an FA Cup any season. They could win a cup they nearly won the Europa League last season, right? This says it all. There's still enough quality in this team, pure quality, to win. If you have Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, these players, like you can win stuff. But to win a Premier League over however many games it is, right, like 38 games, that feels like years and years away right now. But who knows? I mean, what would it take? Different leadership, clearly. Different personnel, clearly. Different ownership, maybe. But these are so many big...
Oh, wait, they did that one.
Yeah. A stadium that doesn't leak whenever it rains. I mean, the list never really ends. But it's not looking good. And it's just, as I said, if you accept shoddy, mediocre performances for a whole season or half a season, and then they continue the next season, why are we acting surprised? There's nothing to be surprised about. They're a lower mid-table club right now. That's how they're playing. That's how they're playing themselves. That's not their squad. But should Sunderland be 7th and they're 14th? No, something's not quite right there.
Well, may continue. That's what I say. I think probably all of us agree. So let's move on to the next thing. And we'll stick with Glenn for this just because his team is more. There's that Icelandic bloke, Hamok Valdemarsson or something like that. Hakim? I don't know. He's big, tall, and Icelandic. That's all anybody needs to know about him. But beating Villa... You
could have just left it at Icelandic, Maka. You don't need the qualifiers.
I could have done that, yeah. But that's true, yeah. And weird, probably related to everybody else on the island. Uses Bjork as his alarm clock. But a nice victory there on penalties tonight. It was against Villa, wasn't it? Harvey Elliott getting his goal, a debut goal for Villa, but didn't help them much. We don't want to concentrate too much on Villa, but for Brentford, continuing into the round where I think the next round is where all the European teams go into the hat, isn't it? So, it would be nice for Keith Andrews to push forward in that cup particularly, because that seems to be the cup. Even though it's Liverpool, Chelsea, City, Arsenal, and all that, who usually end up in the final and the semi-finals and all that, it still feels like the cup that anybody can win, even more so than the FA Cup a little bit, despite Crystal Palace last year. How does that victory please you? Are you happy to have the extra game going into the next round? Would you want to continue to have the extra game going into the round? And then how do you feel about you not only have Liverpool's excellent former number 2, but you now apparently have the entire island of Iceland, brick wall, ice wall, in penalty shootouts at least, but not during the game. Tell us about that, because I remember you saying before we went on air, he wasn't the best on the actual field.
No, he had a pretty inconsistent 90 minutes. He made 2 good saves, but the goal that Villa scored that Harvey Elliott got was shambolic. Was a pass into Janelt, who hasn't played much recently. He got caught in possession in the centre-back zone, and Harvey Elliott runs through and he kicks it straight at Valdemarson, straight at him. It just goes straight through his legs, straight in. Awful. And there's a couple of moments, very nervy moments, Mac, one where he goes for a punch from a throw or a corner. He manages to punch it really high in the air the wrong way. So it's going high in the air back towards goal, which I haven't seen in a long time. So he looked pretty nervy, looked pretty shaky. But I tell you what, those 2 penalty saves he made were outstanding. Both penalties were going bottom right-hand corner, both well struck, both accurate. He guessed, he dived full length. I think he knocked a contact lens out with one of them, and he tipped them around the post. I mean, they were top draw saves. So got the man of the match. As I've said on the pod before, Mac, I always want to be in every cup. I never see that as anything except a bonus, as a victory. I'll never ever see it, whether we're 20th or second, as an extra game. It's just there's certain circumstances where I can understand it, but generally speaking, it just comes across as arrogant and dismissive to me, that kind of attitude, regardless of your club. So absolutely respect the cup. I think we got to the quarterfinals and Sully's team tore us apart because we didn't play a very strong team from memory. So that was disappointing last season. But yeah, all I'd say, Macro, this really showed our depth in squad. I feel like there was 1, maximum 2 starters from the Chelsea game. So we have rotated pretty much the entire team.
Henderson wasn't even on the squad, was he?
No, he had 90 minutes. Are you kidding me? Oh, he's in an ice bath somewhere. He's locked in a cryo chamber. But
he's in Milner's. He's in James Milner's house drinking the medicinal Ribena.
He is. Yeah, they've got some de-aging liquid. But yeah, I mean, I think Van den Berg, I don't know if anyone else except him started against Chelsea. Looking at this team,
another Liverpool connection for you there.
Yeah. Oh no, and that's been great for us. Carvalho stepped up first, scored his penalty first in the shootout. But we look good, and I will say this game had a really surprising high quality tempo. Both teams brought on quality off the bench, and they brought on Watkins, they brought on Rodgers, they brought on Kamara, they brought on Bendia, we brought on Damsgaard, Collins. The last 20 minutes, Mac, was like an end-to-end Premier League game. It was really entertaining because, as we've said in the chat, right, and Hassan thinks Villa will pick up points, I agree. Villa are under the cosh. They needed to win this. They needed a goal, and we gifted them that. But if you take away that goal, because it was a real calamity from us, they still haven't scored any goals this season. That counts, don't get me wrong. But if you're a Villa fan, I'm not celebrating that, shoddy, sad goal. I mean, you're just like, hey, hold on. We've played another 90 minutes of football and cannot score for the life of us, right? So if I'm Villa, this does not ease any fears at all. Sancho, Elliott, I mean, they tried, they worked hard, but yeah, great for us. What a great way. This is the thing. I just think, much like the Amorim thing I was saying, Mac, I feel like winning begets winning, right? You get into a habit of winning in the cup, you win in the league. If you lose in the league, you lose in the cup. And look at Grimsby. They've got in a habit of upsets. They win again today. I think cup success is brilliant regardless of the round.
Now, so you didn't play tonight because your team is in Europe and you start your Champions League campaign off on Thursday, but it's against Barcelona. Could it get any tougher for you?
No. Well, yes, I think it actually could. Lamine Yamal is not going to play. And I think that is going to be a real detriment to Barcelona. I think our size and physicality, especially if we get all of our boys back, that's going to be a real problem. There is the old joke, could he get it done in a cold night at Spurs? Well, it's about to be a cold night at St. James's Park.
Nah.
So we're going to see what happens. I really like our chances. I think we are catching Barcelona at the perfect time. I think this is the best opportunity we have against a team like this. So we'll see what happens. But I'm shockingly confident. And, after my big point of reference is the PSG game we played a couple years ago where we came in and blew the doors off of them. When Sean Longstaff and Dan Burn are scoring against PSG, you know it's your night. And I have a feeling it's going to be another one of those nights on Thursday against Barcelona.
Do you think now the kind of the experience of winning the Carabao Cup, people who haven't won it, and Manchester United fans will dismiss it. It's a fake cup. It's not a real cup, but there is no price to be put on a team winning something together. It forges something that you can't get just in the normal run of play. Do you think you are maybe a bit more confident because the Newcastle team can get over the line, as opposed to maybe if Liverpool had won the Carabao Cup that day and you were still trophyless? Does that put a different slant on it? Does it give you more confidence to know that Eddie Howe can take things over the line?
Yes, but I think also now that the brouhaha of the summer has died down, and we have the reinforcements. Like, we reinforced our lineup. I feel much, much better about playing in Europe now than I did 2-3 years ago. Like that, like the team we sent to Europe, it was 11 guys. I mean, Eddie was playing the same 11 week games, cup games, weekend games, everything. And I'm feeling much, much better. I don't see the Carabao Cup as having as much of an impact. I think everybody is kind of refocused and knows that it's not all on them every single game. So I think that is going to give us the biggest advantage going into this Champions League season.
And then, do you think, as a Newcastle fan, and I remember way back in the early 2000s, 2000, 2001, when Bobby Robson was the manager, and you had, Craig Bellamy, and you had Gary Speed and all that. That was a fearless team. It was a team that just, like, because Bobby Robson was such a fantastic coach and manager, and he never left the team that didn't believe they could win the game. But did you ever think you'd be at the point where you're facing Barcelona, last year's finalists, and go, I think we can win this easily?
No.
I mean, that's the Eddie Howe effect, isn't it? That's what that kind of does for you.
That's not just the Eddie Howe effect. That's also the St. James Park effect.
Yeah.
It being a home game is a difference maker. And on top of that, this almost goes back to the Manchester United discussion. Man U doesn't have an identity. Newcastle has an identity. We're gonna smack you in the mouth. All right. You come into our stadium, we are going to play rough. We are going to play physical. We are going to play a full 90 minutes.
And that's just the women.
Yeah. I knew it was coming.
So did they.
Oh, God. 2 for 2. But yeah, I feel very, very good. I'm expecting a very competitive game. But I think Barcelona, it could be in for a rude wake-up call. I would not be surprised if it is either a lopsided score, kind of like the PSG game was, 3-1, or 1-2-0 us, but a dominant 1-2-0, where Barcelona never had the opportunities, but we couldn't finish our chances. I could see either of those going. I could see the game going in either of those directions. But either way, I'm feeling pretty good about Thursday, and that's kind of weird. I might need to call somebody about that.
Yeah, you might have to. Yeah, you might have to do that. But I mean, let's hope it works out for you. Because Barcelona can always be taken down a peg or two in life, and I don't think anybody would ever complain.
At least we're not Madrid. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So because we've done fantastic here, getting to an hour and 8 minutes talking about stuff that we are finally getting towards the games this weekend. Liverpool, Everton, we will discuss on Thursday night on the Thursday pod. Brighton against Spurs, Burnley against Forest. That's probably Ange's best chance of getting 3 points in the next few weeks. West Ham, Crystal Palace, Wolves and Leeds. There's a relegation battle if ever there was one. United and Chelsea, out of the frying pan and into the fire, Glenn. What do you think?
Muted, Glenn.
That's going to be a test.
There you go. Take two.
Take two. Yeah, no, that's going to be a test, isn't it? I mean, we'll see. I mean, both sides really need the points, right? It should be. It's crazy. We're only 4 games in, and all these matches feel really meaningful, don't they? That's what I like about the Premier League. I mean, lots of these games have stakes. I mean, even Sunderland Villa, for example, you'd think, oh, Sunderland are at home, this is really backs to the wall, getting a point. Villa are under huge pressure. So suddenly Sunderland can be freed up to play some football. But for United Chelsea, what happens, Maka, if Palmer starts, Pedro plays well. Again, he's been a superstar for them since arriving from Brighton. What if Chelsea leave Old Trafford with a 3-0 win? Just for example, what happens there? Because there will become a snapping point when the fans just cannot face seeing any more Amorim ball. It's unlikely. And I mean, history would suggest, as you mentioned there in the chat, that United would do well. But, pressure's on, isn't it? Pressure's on. And I mean, Chelsea looked pretty good against us. If they had played that second half team from the start, I imagine 1 point may have been 3 because that had the quality, that team. He's not going to make that mistake again, is he? So I fancy Chelsea to get a win there, actually. And I'm curious to see how much pressure that puts Amorim under. Now, wouldn't it be the most Amorim thing ever if they sneak a 1-0 win and we just kind of like delay this, postpone, delay for another month or two dealing with this? But even beating Chelsea 1-0, I don't think that's going to give him way longer. I just think that's just going to keep postponing what feels like the inevitable right now. But I fancy Chelsea for a win, I'll be honest.
Let's look at your own game there. Brentford against Fulham away. Fulham beat Leeds but the weekend, but not convincingly. I don't think it was. Do you fancy your chances? Do you think that Keith Andrew train will stay on the tracks for this one?
I hope so. Yeah, I've said it before in the pod, but one of my favourite ever games for Brentford in person, which I've seen many, was winning 4-1 at Craven Cottage in the Championship. We scored 4 screamers, 4 goal of the season contenders in one game, away from home in a West London derby. I mean, life doesn't really get much better than that. My dad was there when we beat them 3-0. I think that was in our debut season in the Premier League. It was our debut or second season, but we got a huge win at Craven Cottage in the Premier League. Dad was in the away end, brilliant scenes there. So, yeah, I fancy us to get a good result here, I think it'll be a good game. That's not to say Fulham can't comfortably win. I'm just thinking with a bit of momentum. Fully fit team. If Damsgaard's fully fit, as I said, he was ill. He missed the Chelsea game. Damsgaard, Thiago, Sharda, Dango. That's quite a good forward force. That really is, considering we've lost Visser and Mbumo. That's pretty good. I fancy us to do well. I really do.
Let's look at the Sunday games. Bournemouth and Newcastle Sully. Bournemouth they're the Brighton of the day right now, I think. Do you think you may do the typical suffering the first few weeks of the Champions League, the Saturday, Wednesday? So for you, it's Thursday, actually. It's almost like playing in the Europa League and their conference now. And it has had a noticeable effect. It's been shown playing Thursday, Sunday is really detrimental to the team playing on Sunday. That played on Thursday rather than the team that had the break. Do you think there'll be enough in the tank, especially in your midfield? If your 3 best midfielders start, and we know those 3 are workhorses, probably the hardest working team in the league, but is there enough gas in the tank this early in the season to be able to take on Bournemouth as well?
I truly think there is. I think we'll see a lot more Lewis Miley. I think we'll see more Lewis Hall. Like I said, Ramsey will probably be back. I think we're going to have the bodies to rotate some guys in there. It's nice to have an early season test to see, all right, did the transfer window pay off for us? Are our replacements, are our what's the word I'm looking for? Are our substitutes, are they ready to go? Is this a viable system that Eddie has put into place for playing both Champions League football and Premier League football? I think it'll be very, very interesting to see Sunday what we do have in the tank. But if we're coming off, I'm almost more worried about Sunday if we come off of a massive win with Barcelona. I'm almost more worried about the hangover than I am, can the team do this consistently?
Let's look at the final games. Villa against Sunderland. I mean, that you'd have to hope that Villa can get something out of that game. Otherwise, their a season in Israel may ensue from there. And then Arsenal City, Glenn and Sully. How do we see that turning out? Is this going to be Arsenal's crowning as this year's league challengers, as legitimate as Liverpool, or the City revival, especially with Donnarumma is their goalkeeper now, isn't it? Especially with him in goal. Maybe nullifying all of their corner kick tactics. Glenn, do you think this is the kind of point where Arteta gets shown up again as being more just a mere pretender?
I do fancy City here. I think Haaland, his XG for the first 4 games is double anyone else in the league, right? That's how dangerous he is. I think the next person, he's at 4 or 5 and somebody else is basically at 2. I mean, he is looking in really good touch. He should have had a hat-trick against Brighton. He could have had a hat-trick. He should have had a hat-trick against United. If they can get him service, I think he'll really thrive. I know he struggled against Gabriel and Saliba before. I don't know if Saliba is fully fit or not, but I just feel like the pressure's on Arsenal a little bit. You know, I still feel like Man City, especially these draws, you know, these negative away draws that Arsenal have got at the Etihad that really did derail their kind of title hopes the season before last. I feel like City are this spectre over Arteta. Oh, of course they are. I mean, it's the relationship with Pep, but if Foden is fit and firing, I mean, he is the kind of player that can just raise an entire team. Phil Foden, fully fit, fluid, playing good football. I mean, he's the kind of elite top 1% player in the Premier League on his day that is priceless. So if they can just piece things together, I still think Man City there is an element of transition there. It will be a test. I can see this going either way. But yeah, I'll put it this way. I fancy Haaland to get a goal. I think the pressure is going to be on Arteta to really prove his title credentials. As you said, Macca, this is the opportunity to say it's us or Liverpool this season, right? It's not going to be Spurs. It's not going to be United. It's probably not going to be Chelsea. If you get a big win against Man City, it probably won't be Man City because they've already dropped a stack of points. Should be a good game. I'll be playing football myself during, unfortunately, but I'd be really curious. I think this is a real popcorn fixture, and I'm really excited to see how it pans out.
Phil Foden and Cole Palmer, 2 elite players sharing the same crap barber. Sully, what do you think about the Arsenal City game? Do you think City can continue that little run? Is Haaland going to cause Arsenal a lot of misery, or will Arsenal pull off the student beating the master?
No, I think this game ends in a draw, but I think it ends in a high scoring draw. I could see this being like 3-3. I have a feeling Gyökeres is going to be up for it. I think Haaland is going to be up for it. It'd be really interesting to see if Arteta and Pep just threw caution to the wind and just let everybody off the leashes and went ultra attacking both directions. I could totally see that. I think that is what this game has the potential to be. And I think if Arsenal's looking for a signature win, that's how they have to play this. They have to play with reckless abandon. But either way, I think this is going to be an entertaining one. This one's going to be an absolute classic, a real barn burner.
As Ed says, that Arsenal beat them last year 5-1. Unfortunately, you don't get your points for last year. You got to do it this year. Let's have one more look here. If your eyesight can see these fixtures there, let me go on full blast. Tonali picks, gentlemen. Is there any there? Do you think Everton are going to shock Liverpool? Will Brighton get something over Spurs, Glenn?
Burnley. Does it count, Mac? I fancy Burnley to beat Forest. I don't know if that quite counts this season with how Forest have started.
Yeah, I think that counts.
All right, because I'm a bit of a stickler for looking at the table as well, but I think Burnley. I think that would be a shock, right? Forest finished 7th last season, wherever it was. Burnley have come up. I think Burnley are going to beat Forest.
And then Ange for the sack today. No, I'm kidding. You never know that owner, actually. I was going to make that joke there, but it was like, it's that owner. He could probably sack him the day after. Sully, have a look there. What do you think? Any Tonali picks there for you?
I almost fancy Everton to get a point. I'm building like a mini parlay in my head right now. Everton to get a draw with Liverpool. Villa to finally score a goal, and this is where it gets spicy, all right? Like, buckle up, boys. Jadon Sancho gets that goal. I think that triple parlay, and I'm retired.
I like it.
Now, to be fair, Everton is always a tight game anyway. Like we won't even predict the score. Like, a draw sounds perfectly reasonable.
I mean, it all depends on whether you guys get the appropriate amount of stoppage time or not. You know, like we all know how this goes.
Yeah, the correct amount of stoppage time, I think it's called.
Absolutely
never.
Amount. Absolutely never.
Now, let's have a quick look at the table there. The top of the table, of course, Liverpool, 4 wins from 4. And, high on the goals, but also a bit suspect on the goals conceded. Spurs at third, you can't argue with Thomas Frank's impact there. But Everton, this is the tricky thing for us. Moyes is a very good Everton manager. I think he always said he was a good manager, even at United, just the wrong club. And gave us a bit of a laugh and all that. But for a certain type of club, West Ham, perfect manager. But Sunderland there being in 7th, nobody called that one this early, did we? So fair play to Sunderland. And then there's Newcastle just inching their way into the top 10. But it's too early in the season to start saying there's gaps forming. So it's probably anybody's for top 5 at least within there. And then let's get to the bottom half of the table. Sorry, Glenn. The bottom half of the table, and no, that's the wrong one. There we go. Fulham, Brentford. I mean, it's not that far off. It's just so ridiculously early in the season, but the one noticeable thing is Man United and Forest being that low this early, and Villa probably even more surprisingly second from bottom. I don't think anybody would predicted that at the end of last season. The Christmas period is gone.
Villa with 2 points and no goals,
goals. It's the no goals.
That needs to be like framed somewhere, because when you tell people about that statistic, nobody is going to believe you that they had 2 points in 4 games without scoring in any of those first 4 games. That is just mind-blowing.
Absolutely, yeah, that's absolute madness. You wouldn't expect it. But the thing is, Unai Emery is going to figure something out at some point. They're probably not compete for Champions League places this season, but they'll do okay. But yeah, no, interesting table, but still only 4 games in. And then with the news, I believe the proposal is to combine the 2 international breaks for next year onwards for October or September, October, whatever, to one big long 3-week break. At this point next season, we'll have something a bit more substantial maybe to look at. Maybe 8 games in or something like that. But let's, if you joined us tonight for the first time especially, but if you enjoy what we are doing, then you got to do these things. So you got to follow us on the YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter, and Blue Sky, Instagram, all of the things that are social and media-like. Glenn and Sully, fantastic to be talking to you as always. I will never turn that opportunity down. It's always a great conversation. For everybody else who joined in the comments, in the chat, and etc., we really appreciate it. Make sure you're hitting that like button, smashing it, or gently tapping the keyboard if you have an old keyboard like mine is and you don't want to break the keys. But we will see everybody tomorrow morning for the regular ASTV morning coffee show, if you watch that. Thursday night podcast for all Liverpool content and a review of the Villarreal game. And then we'll see what happens for the derby on Saturday for watch-alongs, etc., pre-matches and post-matches. But Glenn and Sully, thank you for joining us. Enjoy your weekend. Everybody else out there, have a good one. Peace out. Let's all go to beddy, boys. Here's some funky music.
Thanks, Becca.